While working his minimum wage job at a bagel shop, the miserable Ed watches a couple making out at the counter. When the man asks if they can use the bathroom, Ed refuses, assuming they only want privacy to hook up. The customer tries to bribe him by offering to buy all the bagels, but Ed stands his ground. The woman then recognizes Ed as the student teacher who taught her geometry years earlier, prompting her boyfriend to mock him as a loser. Frustrated by Ed's refusal, the man grabs bagels from the display case and hurls them at him. After his shift, Ed returns home to find his roommate, JT, sleeping with his girlfriend Ollie in Ed's bed. Irritated, Ed complains that he hasn't even used the bed himself yet and had just changed the sheets. JT apologizes and introduces Ollie properly. Moments later, Ed opens another rejection letter from a teaching job, but JT reassures him that he's meant to be a teacher. Determined to stop waiting for opportunities, Ed decides to take action. The next day, Ed storms into Mr. Washout's office, demanding to know why his application was rejected without an interview. Impressed by his confidence, Mr. Washout reviews his resume and assigns him to an open position at an inner-city middle school. Back at the apartment, Ed finds JT and Ollie preparing for another awkwardly timed romantic moment, but he interrupts them with the good news. The job is an after-school program, and Ed decides it would be best to move closer to work. Though JT is saddened by the idea of seeing him less, he agrees it's probably for the best. Ed soon meets his new landlady, Sydney, who invites him to hang out at the bar downstairs and meet the other tenants. That night, Ed compliments the music and mentions he played oboe in his high school jazz band. Sydney jokes that it's not exactly a crowd-pleasing instrument. On his first day at the new job, Ed enthusiastically introduces himself as the after-school activities coordinator. The students quickly inform him that he's actually overseeing detention. One student, Leon, offers to freestyle rap using Ed's name, but turns it into a crude joke, earning laughs from the class. Suddenly, a student named Shelley returns from the bathroom in tears, convinced she's dying because she's bleeding. Ed realizes she's experiencing her first menstrual cycle and rushes to grab feminine products from the teacher's lounge. Shelley doesn't know how to use them and reveals she has no mother and her father is at work. Unsure what to do, Ed calls Ollie, a nurse, to come help handle the situation. After school, Ed notices his student Tito waiting outside for his ride. Tito's striking older sister, Pilar, soon arrives and introduces herself, leaving Ed instantly smitten. Moments later, her boyfriend Hector pulls up to pick them up. Later that evening at the bar, Ed vents to his friends about how shockingly little his students know about their own bodies. Ollie points out that, even though Ed is inexperienced romantically, he's still capable of teaching basic biology. JT jumps to his defense, reminding everyone that Ed isn't completely clueless, though he admits it's been a long time since Ed has been with anyone. JT encourages him to loosen up and gain some experience before pursuing someone he truly likes. The following day, Ed takes it upon himself to educate his students about the reproductive system so they won't grow up misinformed. When Leon repeatedly disrupts the lesson with crude jokes, Ed sends him to the principal's office. Leon begs him not to, terrified of how his strict father might react, but Ed stands firm. Later, while in the bathroom, Ed overhears Leon's father, Reverend Hamilton, harshly scolding his son and washing his mouth out with soap. Ed intervenes, explaining that he runs the after-school program and is simply teaching students about puberty and bodily changes. Reverend Hamilton argues that such conversations should happen at home, not with a teacher he barely knows or trusts. That night, Ed meets his blind date, Trish, at the bar while Sydney quietly observes their painfully awkward conversation. After a few drinks, Trish pulls Ed into the storage room and starts kissing him, but suddenly breaks down, confessing that men only go out with her because of her reputation. Ed comforts her, telling her she's more than that, and assuring her they don't have to do anything physical. Trish misinterprets his kindness as disinterest and assumes he's attracted to men. After she leaves, Ed returns to the bar, where Sydney admits she could tell right away that Ed wasn't into Trish. He confesses that he lowered his standards out of loneliness. Sydney bluntly reminds him that not having a partner doesn't make him any less of a man and tells him to stop feeling sorry for himself over being broke and single. The next day, Ed teaches his students about sexually transmitted diseases, explaining that abstinence is the only guaranteed prevention, but that protection is necessary if one chooses to be intimate. When the students don't take him seriously, he shocks them into attention with graphic slides. He then demonstrates the proper use of protection. After class, Tito asks Ed for advice, admitting he feels pressured to rush into things with his girlfriend Margarita. Ed advises him not to base his decisions on what he sees online. Shortly after, Pilar arrives and tells Ed that Tito considers him his favorite teacher. She then invites Ed to dinner at their home, explaining that their mother wants to meet him. That evening, Ed meets Tito's mother, Lupe, who asks for help preparing dinner. Hector arrives soon after, and Pilar formally introduces him to Ed. As they set the table, Pilar mentions that she works as a DJ and invites Ed to come see her perform sometime. Once Pilar heads to the kitchen, Hector approaches Ed and offers him a shot of rum. He casually remarks on how strange it is for a teacher to accept a dinner invitation at a student's home, subtly suggesting that he's aware of Ed's attraction to Pilar. Already having had several drinks, Ed retreats to the bathroom and splashes water on his face, trying to sober up. During dinner, Hector notices Ed looking uneasy and dares him to eat a fish eye. Ed reluctantly complies but instantly regrets it, vomiting onto Lupe. Mortified, he bolts from the house and escapes to the bar. Sydney reassures him that everyone has humiliating moments and urges him not to let one bad night stop him from pursuing the woman he cares about. The next day, Ed invites JT and Ollie to help teach his students how to communicate respectfully with the opposite gender. The female students immediately fawn over JT, urging him to show off his muscles. The class then splits into groups and asks questions about situations they might face in the future. Afterward, JT and Ollie admit Ed wasn't exaggerating about how little the students understood about their bodies and relationships. Later, Ed is hanging out with Tito outside the school when Pilar arrives and confides that she and Hector are taking a break due to his possessive behavior. Seizing the moment, Ed invites her to the bar on Thursday night to hear an Afro-Cuban jazz band, and she accepts. The following day, Ed is summoned to Mr. Washout's office after Reverend Hamilton files a complaint. Ed explains that he's only teaching general adolescent health, but Washout insists the district won't allow it, especially given the Reverend's opposition. Ed argues the class is necessary, noting that many students are already experimenting. Washout suggests Ed speak directly with Reverend Hamilton to plead his case. Later that afternoon, Ed notices more students than usual in his classroom. They explain they've heard about the class and wanted to join, but Ed tells them he can't teach the lesson that day, prompting the extra students to leave. In the hallway, Ed asks Tito if he's comfortable with him dating Pilar, and Tito assures him it's fine. After work, Ed meets with Reverend Hamilton, who insists that reproduction shouldn't be taught in schools because removing God from the subject normalizes it and encourages reckless behavior. Ed counters by inviting the Reverend to observe a class firsthand, promising the topic is handled with care and respect. The Reverend agrees to attend. That evening, Ed visits his old apartment and tells JT about his upcoming date with Pilar. In the bedroom, JT advises him to abandon his habit of taking things slowly and be more assertive. He even gives Ed medication he claims will improve his performance. During the next class, Reverend Hamilton sits in the back as Ed answers anonymous written questions from the students. As the questions become less scientific and more inappropriate, the Reverend storms out. Ed follows him into the hallway, but Hamilton accuses him of indulging the students' worst instincts. He says he gave it a chance, but what he witnessed only confirmed his decision to shut down the program. After class, Tito asks Ed for protection, claiming his girlfriend is finally ready to take their relationship further. Ed refuses, insisting that Tito is too young to make choices that could have serious consequences. Tito counters that he plans to go through with it regardless. Later, during his date with Pilar, Ed admits that he eventually gave Tito protection, which infuriates her. She argues that he should have told her, so she could have stopped her brother herself. They rush back to the house and catch Tito and Margarita kissing on the couch. Pilar sends Margarita and Ed away so she can speak privately with her brother. When Ed tries to stay, Pilar lashes out, blaming him for encouraging Tito by teaching him about protection and how to use it. As Ed walks back to his car, Hector confronts him for seeing Pilar and violently attacks him. Shaken afterward, Ed makes a reckless decision and picks up a sex worker, parking in a dark alley. Claiming he has a headache, Ed takes the medication JT gave him, but before he can stop her, the woman takes one as well. Moments later, Ed realizes she is not who she claimed to be. Police suddenly arrive and arrest them both for solicitation. When Ed finally gets home, he admits to JT that he has never actually been with a woman. JT confesses he always suspected as much and that no one ever believed Ed's exaggerated stories. He reassures him that it isn't something to panic about and that it will happen in time. The next day, Ed finds Mr. Washout waiting for him in an empty classroom. Washout informs him that the after-school program has been shut down and that he's being replaced, effectively firing him. Days later, Ed is back at his old bagel shop job when Sydney drops by to check on him. He recounts everything that's happened, admitting he believes his lack of experience has held him back. Sydney tells him to stop defining himself by what he hasn't done and instead focus on becoming the man he wants to be. Determined to make things right, Ed apologizes to Pilar and explains that he was only trying to help Tito. He tells her he genuinely cares about her and wants to prove it. He assembles his oboe and awkwardly plays her a song, despite his lack of skill. Later, the two walk through the city and share a quiet kiss by the river. Pilar then invites him to go with her to her favorite club that night. At the club, Pilar warmly greets Bobby, the bouncer, but Bobby refuses to let Ed inside. Pilar says she'll step in to say hello to her friends and suggests Ed wait so they can go somewhere else afterward. Once she's gone, Bobby bluntly tells Ed to leave, implying Pilar isn't coming back and is out of his league. Moments later, Hector shows up again to confront Ed over Pilar, and another fight breaks out. Soon after, police arrive and arrest both men for the public fight. Later at the bar, Ed realizes that the only way forward is to get his job back, and he decides to speak with Reverend Hamilton the next day. That morning, Ed rallies his students, and together they interrupt the Reverend's support group meeting. Ed openly admits that he has never been sexually experienced, and sometimes questions whether he's even qualified to teach the class. Still, he insists that the lessons are necessary, arguing that without proper education, students will turn to misinformation from friends or the internet. One by one, the students speak up in his defense, explaining that what they've learned has made them more cautious and better informed. Leon adds that there are certain subjects he simply can't discuss with his father. Hearing this, Reverend Hamilton finally understands the importance of the program and agrees to let it continue. Afterward, one of the support group members compliments Ed's courage and expresses her admiration in an overtly flirtatious way, telling him to call her anytime. That evening, Pilar visits Ed's apartment to congratulate him on getting his job back. She mentions that Tito told her about Ed's confession to the group. Pilar kisses him and begins moving toward the bedroom, but Ed suggests they go to the bar first to celebrate with friends. Pilar says she wants to be his first intimate partner, but Ed gently turns her down, explaining that he doesn't want to rush into something just to prove a point. She suggests going to the club instead, but Ed reminds her of the last time he was left waiting outside. Pilar insists it will be different and claims she's only trying to help him become cooler. In that moment, Ed realizes they may not be as compatible as he once believed. Pilar mockingly tells him he should stay celibate forever, and Ed calmly replies that he's fine with that. Later at the bar, Ed admits he still hasn't slept with anyone. Sydney reassures him that what truly matters is that he's finally in control of his life. 1 year later, Ed walks through the school with confidence, now a popular teacher who has earned the respect and admiration of his students. Back in his classroom, a beautiful student teacher enters and asks him to teach her more. Smiling, Ed gladly welcomes her.
And that's the end of the story. I hope you liked it. Comment down below what movies do you like us to recap next. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.